Hello, everyone. This is the 112th episode of the Soccer Nostalgia Talk Podcast. As always, this is Sean from Los Angeles and the Soccer Nostalgia blog. Unfortunately, Mr. Paul Whittle from the 1888 Letter blog could not make it this time. For this episode, I interview Italian author and former freelance journalist Mr. Davide Eskelund Rota as we discuss the matches of the Denmark national team during the 1980-81 season. Mr. Rota is a former freelance journalist from Biella in Italy, currently living in Odense in Denmark since 2013 and working as a languages teacher. He is also the author of Denmark 1908-2018, chronicling the history of the Danish national team. That's
This
it.
one.
Yes. Well, welcome back, Davide.
Thank you. Hello, everyone.
Let's go back in time. What was the state of Danish football and its national team in the autumn of 1980?
I can describe it as in an only word, Renaissance, Rinascimento in Italian. So it was a period where people, fans, journalists were expecting much from the Danish national team after a long period of not so good results. In 1979, Sepp Piontek came from Germany to show to the Danish people, to the Danish football players, a new way to play for the national team, more professional. So there was a lot of hope because Denmark had at that time very good players in the best league in Europe, especially in Germany and in Holland, but also in England, and later when the frontiers were open again in Italy. So a lot of hope and a good period has to come in 1980.
Now, at this point, Denmark manager, the West German Sepp Piontek, had been in charge for a year. Was there a feeling that he was making a headway with the players?
Yes, because after 1 year, the journalists, the press, they were less skeptics, less doubtful about Piontek's systems to show the way for a more professional attitude when they play in the national team. Before, there were many players drinking a beer, smoking a cigarette in the rooms, in the stadium, after or before the game. That was not so professional. But not only this, the attitude, the way how do they have to prepare for a football game was very different. So Sepp Piontek showed the way for a renaissance of professional football in Denmark.
Going into the 1982 World Cup qualifiers, what were the expectations in a group with Italy and Yugoslavia?
The expectations was not maybe for sure to reach the place number 1 or place number 2, so the 2 berths necessary to fly in Spain in 82, because the group was very hard, not only Italy and Yugoslavia, but also Greece. Denmark has a very hard group. But anyway, Sepp Piontek self was invited to the draw. It was the first time a Danish national coach was directly, personally in the draw. And he was optimist because he knew he had a group of very good players, but his job was only to put them together, to show them how to build a team.
Let's start off the season with a friendly on July 12th, 1980 at Moscow against the Soviet Union. For this match, Sepp Piontek selects only home-based players. So for this match, the Danish lineup is Oleg Kjær of Esbjerg, Ole Rasmussen of Odense, Poul Andersen of Odense, captain of the team Per Rundtvedt of Randers, Frank Olsen of Aarhus, making his international debut Kim Sander of Aarhus, Klaus Noregaard of KB, Jens Jorn Bertelsen of Esbjerg, making his international debut Jesper Olsen of Navstad. And he'd be replaced by another international debutant, Michael Schaefer of Lyngby in the 46th minute. Then we have Lars Bastrup of Aarhus, Klaus Berggren of Lyngby, and he'd be replaced by Johnny Jakobsen from Fremad Amager in the 65th minute. Now, this was Jakobsen's one and only cap for the national team. So in this match, the Danes lose 2-0. Fyodor Cherenkov and Valery Gasaev scored the goals for the Soviet Union. Historically, the takeaway is that this was the debut of Jesper Olsen, who would become one of the key members of the Piontek's generation. What can you say about him at this point?
Jesper Olsen was a very great talent. Jesper Olsen was a money machine because Næstved is a little club in Denmark, sold him in Ajax Amsterdam in Holland for a lot of money. It's legendary, a picture of Jesper Olsen pictured with Næstved shirts and surrounded with a lot of cash. So there were a lot of expectation about Jesper Olsen in the national team. So this was like a test. Jesper Olsen was not so high, but he was a very technical player, skillful and fast player. Legendary dribbling was his best talent. For the rest, the name you said, not many of them played abroad. So only Lars Bastrup later in Hamburg, only Per Røntved because he had a long experience in Bundesliga with Werder Bremen, and he was a close friend of Sepp Piontek. And the other one was Klaus Berggren. Klaus Berggren was tested for Ajax Amsterdam too, but he was not sure. He said no thank you to Ajax because he was a special player. He was engaged in that period in the university. At least he had a bachelor, and he wanted a better contract from Ajax. So he said no thank you. And together with him, there was also Michael Schaefer from Lyngby. But at the end, Ajax couldn't buy Schaefer and Klaus Berggren. So Berggren later accepted the offer from an Italian club, Pisa, a little club, Pisa, because he was an insisting chairman flying in Copenhagen to buy him and to convince him to play in Serie A. And it was his fortune because Klaus Berggren was a very good name, a very big name in Serie A, and he learned much in tactical skills. For the rest of this game, as you said, it was only local players, so it was in the middle of the summer. Local players were not so clear, were not so ready to play at this level against the Soviet Union, one of the best teams in Europe at that period. So 2-0, the defeat was expected, but it was not that Piontek has in his mind for build the Danish campaign to Spain 82, as we said later. So the players from Holland, Belgium, Germany, and England were not available to that game. Unfortunately, it was a defeat, but only a friendly game, so not so important.
Next, we have another friendly in August, again with only the local players. So this is on August 27th at Lausanne against Switzerland. For this match, we have the following lineup. Ole Kvist from KB in goal. Ole Rasmussen. Paul Anderson. This would be his third and final cap. His first cap had been in 1979. Per Røntved, captain of the team. Making his international debut, Ole Madsen of Esbjerg. Bertelsen. Klaus Noregard. This would be his ninth and final cap. His first cap had been in 1977. He'd be replaced by Peter Hertz of BK 1893 in the 80th minute. And this would be his one and only cap for Denmark. Then we have Kim Sander, who made his debut the month before. This would be his second and final cap. Ole Skubo of Holding. This would be his sixth and final cap. His first cap had been in 1973. Lars Bastrup. Bjørn Pettersen of Herfolg. And this would be his seventh and final cap. His first cap had been 1974. He'd be replaced by international debutant Ulrich Tikhosen of Vejle in the 66th minute. Now, this match ended as a 1-1 tie. Lars Bastrup gave Denmark the lead in the 26th minute, and Hans-Jørg Pfister tied the match in the 58th minute. But again, it was an experimental match. There were some players who made their international debuts, while others ended their international career with this match. So not much could be judged from this match as well.
Same story like the match against Soviet Union. Only two interesting experiments because Piontek was still searching a good goalkeeper. So Ole Quist from the Copenhagen Ball Club was the best goalkeeper at that time in Denmark. So he was chosen for that game. He was a number one choice. But as we will see, he had a lot of unlucky situations in the future. Denmark had at that time also a good goalkeeper outside of Denmark, abroad. He was Birger Jensen in Bruges. But Birger Jensen had a lot of personally problem with Piontek because he was a player a bit self-standing and a bit arrogant. He answered in a bad way to Piontek because a couple of times he was late in the training. So he has not accepted the new rules with more discipline in the way to play in the national team. And so he was out from the national team. But probably Birger Jensen was still the best Danish goalkeeper at that time. So no other Danish goalkeeper at good level. So Piontek has to choose the best one in the Danish league. And he was Ole Quist. His job was a policeman in Copenhagen. The other experiment was Jens Jørn Bertelsen as a playmaker, because a lot of players abroad, Piontek had not a real regista, a real playmaker. So Bertelsen from Esbjerg was a good choice. He was satisfied, Piontek, about this, about the way to give the rhythm, to give help to balance the team. But he asked to him, if you want to play more in the national team, you need to have a contract abroad. So in few years, Bertelsen played in Switzerland and in France because Piontek wanted to him more experience in a big league.
We come to the World Cup qualifiers and the return of the foreign-based players. On September 27th, 1980, Yugoslavia hosted Denmark at Ljubljana. Now, this is a strong Yugoslav side that would eventually qualify to the World Cup. We have the likes of Dragan Pantelic in goal, the Vujovic twins, Ivan Buljan, who was playing for Hamburg, Vladimir Petrovic, the star of the team, and Safet Susic, whom we would all get to know in the years to come. For this match, Denmark has the following lineup: Ole Kvist in goal, Ole Rasmussen, Stan Ziegler of Ajax, captain of the team, Soren Lerby of Ajax, Jens Steffensen of Arminia Bielefeld in West Germany, Per Rontved, Bertelsen, Frank Arnesen of Ajax, Henning Jensen of Ajax. He replaced by Benny Nielsen of Anderlecht in the 73rd minute, Preben Elker of Lokeren in Belgium, and Lars Bastrup. Denmark would take the lead with a Frank Arnesen penalty kick. Dragan Pantelic had fouled Elker in the box, and Arnesen would score from a spot kick. Yugoslavia tied the match with a spot kick of themselves after Steffensen had fouled Susic in the box. The Yugoslav goalkeeper, who was known for this, Dragan Pantelic, scored from the penalty spot for Yugoslavia. In the 37th minute, Yugoslavia would take the lead from a header by Zoran Vujovic. Yugoslavia would win this match 2-1. So already a defeat, but against a very good team.
Yes, a defeat, but with a lot of discussions about the second penalty of the game when the goalkeeper, Dragan Pantelic, scored from the spot. In this episode, Jens Steffensen took the ball, not a foul against Safet Susic, and the Danish people was very, very disappointed about this decision of the referee because he changed the balance of the game, and Denmark was not worst, and Yugoslavia in that game was maybe about a lack of concentration after the 1-1 goal, and Denmark lose that game with a bit of recrimination about this penalty, not the best penalty, not the clearest penalty in the world. But anyway, Denmark played in the same level, in the face-to-face against a good team in Europe with a lot of experienced players. They were out from Yugoslavia. So it was still possible to win against Yugoslavia at home. But of course, there were also the two games against Italy. It was not the best start, but this episode of the penalty had meaning in the balance of the game and in the balance of the group in the standing.
The next match was a next World Cup qualifier, this time at home at Copenhagen at Idrettsparken against Greece. For this match, we have Ole Kvist, Ole Rasmussen, Sten Ziegler, Morten Olsen of Anderlecht, Lerby, Steffensen, Bertelsen. He'd be replaced by Benny Nielsen of Anderlecht in the 58th minute. This was Benny Nielsen's 28th and final cap. His first cap had been in 1970. Arnesen, Elker, Henning Jensen. He'd be replaced by Lars Bastrup in the 75th minute. And Alan Simonson. At this point, he was at Barcelona in Spain. Now, this was a major setback for Denmark. They lost at home 1-0 when, in the 50th minute, Konstantin Kuis scored from a free kick. With the home loss and their second consecutive loss, their backs were already against the wall in terms of qualification. Also, this was Benny Nielsen's last cap after a decade with the national team.
The match was a bit unlucky. Honestly, I have to say Nikos Sarganis, the Greek goalkeeper, in that game played the game of his life because he was unbeatable. Simply unbeatable. He made about 9-10 saves. Fantastic game about Sarganis. So Danish players were without award because they couldn't score one only goal against this phantom goalkeeper because he was really a monster. But anyway, Piontek has not yet found the real balance of his team. There were too many mistakes in defense, too many players that didn't agree Piontek's systems, like, for example, Benny Nielsen too. That's, I guess, it was because he played the last game of the national team. So he was still on top in Anderlecht, and he was scoring a lot of goals in the European Cups. But Piontek needed more discipline, more team attitude. So after this game, changed again, especially in defense, where he was sure he has not a very international goalkeeper, but he needed two good defenders to mark the forwards, to stop the forwards game. And then he will find them. But he needed a bit of time more because they were not ready. But as we will say, Jens Steffensen, but also Sten Ziegler, or Ole Rasmussen were not so used so much. And one of the ideas of Sepp Piontek to find solidity in defense was to move Morten Olsen from midfield to the position of libero, and position where we know him now as a legendary player, one of the best Danish players all time.
While losing narrowly to Yugoslavia could be seen as a positive result, losing at home to Greece was a step back, and World Cup qualification appeared to be virtually over after two matches. Was this a takeaway at the time?
Of course, the press were not so happy about this poor start, 0 points after two games, when Italy was winning all the games. Italy won all the 4 games for 8 points. Italy was already in Spain after the first half of this group, or the program. It was just possible to fight for the place number 2 against Yugoslavia, and maybe against Greece, because Greece was still in run in that period. But the players were confident. They believed in Piontek. They were not disappointed because they were sure in a long term this war give some prize, give some results, give some positive consequence for the Danish national team and for the Danish football. But they need to be a bit patient. And of course, we can say to the journalists, they follow the team every day to be patient after a start of 0 points in 2 games.
It would get worse as on November 1st, 1980, they met Italy at Roma. They would lose this match as well, 2-0. Now, this is Italy's side that would eventually win the 1982 World Cup. Enzo Bierzo's team. We have the likes of Dino Zoff in goal, Gentile, Cabrini, Colovati, Scirea, Bruno Conti, Tardelli, Altobelli, Graziani, Bettega, amongst others, and Marini. Very good team. As you said, they won their first 4 matches in the group, and this was one of them. It was a 2-0 win. Graziani scored twice for Italy. But let's look at the Denmark lineup. We have Oleg Kjær, Morten Olsen, Soren Lerby, Jens Steffensen, Ole Rasmussen, Per Rontved, Bertelsen, Arnesen, Elker, Bastrup, and Henning Jensen. This was the final cap for Henning Jensen, his 22nd and final cap. His first cap had been in 1972. Again, third defeat in the group.
No excuse this time. Italy was stronger. Italy was most experienced. Italy had a lot of players from Juventus. That was one of the best team in Europe at that time. A little excuse can be 5 minutes before the game. The 2 Danish goalkeepers, they were warming up together, Ole Kjær, Ole Kvist, and they crashed together. So it was a very, very unlucky situation. And Ole Kvist, it was supposed to play from start. He couldn't. So in the first 11, we have Ole Kjær, number 16, not ready, not warm up, not clear, not ready to play from the start. It's not a case. Ole Kjær was a bit responsible about the 2 goals of Graziani. That was an extraordinary episode who couldn't help the Danish confiance in this game. But anyway, it was not possible to play face-to-face against Italy at that point in Rome, in the full Olimpico Stadium. So the defeat was deserved, no way. But still, Denmark had a chance to fight and to come up to make a return for the second place, were still possible. But only Piontek and some players, not all the players, were believing to try to do a miracle after 3 defeats to run for the second place in the group.
Henning Jensen played for the last time for Denmark in this match. What can you say about his career?
Henning Jensen was one of the best players Denmark had all time. Henning Jensen was the only one Danish player selected in the 1973 when Denmark was a deal of was a part of the new Europe, the new European Union, was one of the new nations, and he was selected as a only Danish players, and he scored a fantastic goal heading by a cross of Bobby Charlton. And this goal is legendary in Denmark. Has been also a book, The Fly of the Angel. His poesy is something unbelievable and unforgettable. But in that period, of course, Henning Jensen, after a long career with Borussia Mönchengladbach, with Ajax, and of course with Real Madrid, was too old to play in the national team. So Piontek needed new forces, new young players like Jesper Olsen. And in attack, he has also players like not only Preben Elkjær and Lars Bastrup, but also a certain Allan Simonsen. So the choice was much. There were a lot of good offensive players, and Henning Jensen, in fact, actually stopped his career after 1 year.
Realistically, after this loss against Italy, was the rest of these qualifiers seen as a chance to experiment?
Yes, in a way. In the other way was a plan to work in a longer term, in a long period about the European Championship in '84. So the age of the players was not so high. So Piontek knew he had good, talented young players, and he couldn't work for a long project in 2-3 years, and he had also a contract with the Danish Federation. So yes, an experiment, but also maybe if they won the 2 games with Luxembourg, and if they defeat Greece and Yugoslavia, maybe a miracle can happen. As we will see, Denmark were close to the miracle in that campaign. But of course, the bad start has significance in that group.
The next qualifier was on November 19th at home at Copenhagen against Luxembourg. For this match, we have Ole Kjær, Ole Rasmussen, captain of the team, Per Rontved, making his international debut, Ivan Nilsson of Feyenoord in Holland. Jens Steffensen, this would be his 9th and final cap. His first cap had been in 1976. Bertelsen, Lerby, Arnesen, Bastrup. He'll be replaced by international debutant Kenneth Brill of Anderlecht in the 82nd minute. Allan Simonsson and Elkjær. Denmark would comfortably win this match 4-0. Frank Andersen scored in the 13th minute and scored a penalty kick in the 41st minute. Elkjær scored in the 57th minute and Simonsson in the 65th minute. Easy match, easy win, as was expected.
Yes, I agree. Easy win as expected, and a group of players like Arnesen, Lerby, Elkjær, and Simonsen were starting to be the generals of Piontek's project. But it was also interesting to remark the debut of Ivan Nilsson, because Ivan Nilsson was the man they needed to give force to the defense, stability to the defense, also in the high balls. Because Ole Madsen and Jens Steffensen, the two backs before, they were not so fast in marking and in close, in fight against good offensive players. So Ivan Nilsson from Feyenoord, but grown up in a local club, has made 3 different good players in the Danish dynamite, like Søren Lerby and Frankie Arnesen. Ivan Nilsson was from Fremad Amager. Fremad Amager was a small club in the periphery in southern Copenhagen, in an island where there is the airport of Kastrup. So Ivan Nilsson was younger and then Lerby and Arnesen, but he was important for the national team, and this debut against Luxembourg was very significant for the future.
We come into the new year 1981. The first match is in April, a friendly against Romania at Copenhagen. For this match, we have the following lineup: Ole Kvist, Ole Rasmussen, Søren Busk, appearing for the first time this season. At this point, he's at MVV in Holland. Making his international debut, Henrik Eigenbrod of KB, Ole Madsen, Morten Olsen, captain of the team, Bertelsen, Allan Simonsson. Making his international debut, John Eriksson of Roda JC in Holland. He'd be replaced by Jens Kolding in the 70th minute, Lars Bastrup, and Preben Elkjær. And we should mention for Jens Kolding, this was his 6th and final cap. His first cap had been in 1973. So Denmark would win this match 2-1. Rodion Kamataru had given Romania the lead in the 46th minute. Allan Simonsson tied the match with a penalty kick in the 51st minute, and Lars Bastrup scored a winner in the 80th minute.
It was a very good win against a good team, because Romania at that time had a lot of players from Universitatea Craiova, Dinamo Bucharest, or Steaua Bucharest. They were good in the European Cups, and Romania was one of the 8 teams qualified for European Championship in '84. So it was a good win, but it was important again, the debut of defender. This time it was Søren Busk from Maastricht, and later from other Holland and Belgium and France clubs. Søren Busk and Ivan Nilsson were the 2 players defined with Piontek's word, the 2 Dobermans. The 2 Dobermans, because they were important to mark, to stop, and to fight against the offensive players of the other team. They were players with a certain affidability for Piontek in the defense, and they never lose the place again. Also, only a few games when they were injured. So Ivan Nielsen from Feyenoord and Søren Busk from Maastricht were the two giants in the defense. And of course, in this team, it's very interesting to remark the debut of John Eriksen, unlucky player. He played at that time in Holland, in Roda. He was before top scorer in the Danish league with Odense Ball Club. And he had an unlucky career because in the national team, he scored a lot of goals in Holland, in Belgium, in Switzerland too, where he was top scorer together with Karl-Heinz Rummenigge. He played at that time in Servette, but there were too many good players together in the national team at that time, like Elkjær, Bastrup, and later the fantastic Michael Laudrup, because in few years we will see also the biggest talent all time in the Danish football, Michael Laudrup. But John Eriksen, unfortunately, after the career, had a bad depression, bad health, and he was in cure, and he had a bad death. He died very young. He was only, I think, 41, 42 years old. And in the career, he deserved more because he was a talented, alike of Danish Gerd Müller with opportunism. In that game against Romania, he made his debut. And his best period in the national team was in '86 when he scored a goal against West Germany in Mexico in that game. But it's more important the debut on Søren Busk in defense in that game.
Next, we have another qualifier against Luxembourg, this time at Luxembourg, and which was expected to be a win for Denmark. So for this match on May 1st, we have Ole Kvist, Ole Rasmussen, Søren Busk, Per Rontved, captain of the team, Eigen Brode. He'd be replaced by Allan Simonsson in the 60th minute. Frank Arnesen, Morten Olsen, Bertelsen, Lerby, John Eriksen, and Preben Elkjær. Denmark would win this match 2-1. Alan Nuremberg scored for Luxembourg in the 36th minute. Preben Elkjær tied the match in the 46th minute. Finally, Frank Anderson scored the winner in the 62nd minute. A win that was expected, but perhaps they should have won with a heavier score. But nonetheless, it was a win.
Yeah, not a good start. They were losing 0-1, and lack of concentration, lack of form, because maybe in November we are in the full of the season, in the middle of the season, where a lot of players were most concentrated, more focused on their club in Bundesliga, in Holland, and in France, in Belgium. So not the best start, but as expected, there was a win in the second half where Denmark had a lot of chance, and they scored with Elkjær, and Arnesen was at that time undoubtedly the best and the most important player on the Piontek's 11. So 2 more points, 2 more confidence, and now the games against Greece and Yugoslavia, and the last game, of course, against Italy at home in Parken.
So next we have a match on May 14th as part of the Nordic Cup at Sweden at Malmö. So for this match, we have Ole Kvist, Ole Rasmussen, Søren Busk, Per Rontved, captain of the team, Ole Madsen. He'd be replaced by Henrik Eigen Brode in the 33rd minute. Bertelsen, Morten Olsen, Lars Bastrup, Arnesen, Kenneth Brill. He'd be replaced by Lars Lundqvist of Skovbakken, a club from Aarhus, in the 61st minute, and Preben Elkjær. So Denmark would win this match 2-1. Lars Bastrup scored in the 63rd minute, Preben Elkjær in the 71st minute, and Bo Borgesen scored a goal in the 74th minute, an eventual 2-1 Danish win. So a good away win ahead of the match against Italy.
Yeah, it was a game. It was technically not a friendly game because there were still the Nordic Cup between Denmark, Norway, Finland, Sweden, and sometimes Iceland. But it was like a test game. Denmark won 2-1, but the expectation of this game was only because it was the classical game against Sweden, so like a derby for the Danish people. There is still a lot of rivalry between Denmark and Sweden. but not so important, just a test to hold the focus up of the players. It is interesting to remark this period was very happy for Kenneth Larsen Brulle in Danish. That's the real, the correct pronounce. Kenneth Brulle grew up in Vejle, like a lot of Danish talents, like Alan Simons himself. And at that time, he moved in Anderlecht. And he was like a reserve player, but very important when he was called to come in the game, as we will see in the European Cup '84 when he scored against Belgium. Belgium was the land where he played at the time in Anderlecht and later in Bruges. And Belgium is the land where he's still living, Kenneth Brill, because he's still there with a Belgian wife. So it was interesting to see Kenneth Brill in that game, but no more than a test game like the other one with Romania of some months before.
Now we come to the last match of the season and the legendary match against Italy on June 3rd, 1981 at Copenhagen, a date that's in the annals of Danish football history. Now, remember, just months earlier, Italy had convincingly defeated Denmark 2-0. This is virtually the same Italian lineup plus Giancarlo Antonioni. But at this point, Denmark is growing in confidence. For this match, we have the following lineup: Ole Kvist, Ole Rasmussen, Lerby, Morten Olsen. He's replaced by Henrik Eigenbrod in the 75th minute. Soren Busk, Per Rontved, captain of the team, Allan Simonsson, Bertelsen, Bastrup, Arnesen, and Preben Elkjær. So the first half is scoreless, but Denmark takes the lead in the 58th minute. So Morten Olsen's cross from the right side, it reached Rontved on the left side, who shot from a narrow angle to give Denmark the lead. Just 2 minutes later, in the 60th minute, Arnesen scored with a free kick. Italy would pull a goal back again through Francesco Graziani in the 68th minute. But just before the end, in the 86th minute, Elkjær receives the ball in the box. He tried to advance, but he was stopped, and Bastrup knocked in the loose ball. Denmark had defeated Italy 3-1. Can you explain its significance?
It's not easy because I need a couple of hours to explain the significance of that game. But anyway, it was significant also to my life in some ways because it means a lot to me. At that time, I was a boy living in Italy. I was Italian and I was still supporting Italy, of course. But I had a passion, an interest, a special love for Denmark, for Danish national team. I was disappointed, of course, when they lost the three first games in the group. But I was still hoping Denmark and Italy were together in Spain. And in that game, Denmark played the game of their life. Parken was, at the time, the name was Idræts Parken, was full of people, sold out. A lot of people going crazy about one of the best game never played on the Danish national team. Italy, maybe about after the first half, a bit slow and crazy and lazy, and with full blue uniform for one time, also the shorts, not only the shirt. And Denmark was lucky, faster, with more focus and motivation of Italy in that game. That game is a real turning point of the Danish football history because the Danish players understood they can do everything. They can beat everybody. And not casually, that was only one defeat of Italy in the campaign on the road to Spain '82, qualifications and final pools. So Denmark won 3-1. I remember I was so happy to see Danish people, Danish players play in that way. But a lot of Italians in my bar, when they were watching the game together with me, they didn't understood oh, are you Italian or not? But I was anyway happy because Italy was already qualified and Denmark has still a chance to have the place number two. I was happy for both teams. And not casually, after a lot of years, I decided to move in Denmark, but that's another story. But that game was very, very important to me. And I remember I heard, I read a lot of show and a lot of funny stories about the game. For example, then free kick scored by Frankie Arnesen in the second half was not supposed that Frankie Arnesen has to take it. But it was the third choice. There were two other players on the ball, and Frankie Arnesen took the ball, scored without permission of Piontek, without permission of the two other players. And in a situation where Piontek was pianifying, was organizing everything, there was no good. But anyway, Arnesen scored. So Preben Elkjær, he was also in that game. He said after this goal, every time there were a free kick in that position of the pitch, was supposed Frankie Arnesen has to try to score again, but it never happened in the game. So it was the first and the only time where Frankie Arnesen scored by free kick in that position in the national team. He scored by other ways, but not in free kick. But anyway, Denmark was fantastic that night. A lot of people in Denmark still remembers they were at the stadium the 3rd June in 81 was an historic day for Danish football history.
The first reference match of the Piontek era.
That is right. Yes.
The season had started badly, but ended with this triumph on a positive note. Were there optimism as far as the upcoming matches against Greece and Yugoslavia in the following season?
There were optimism, and the game against Yugoslavia was again decided by the referee with a big mistake. And they lost in Copenhagen against Yugoslavia, but it was not deserved. And the win in Greece was very easy, but the game against Yugoslavia was again not deserved because Denmark played better in Yugoslavia in that game. So I couldn't imagine what happened with Denmark and Yugoslavia were with the same points in the end of the group. But anyway, sportly, I have to say Denmark was admitted the bad start was decisive, was important, was not good. So they deserve to go out to end as a number 3 because they have to start better in the group, the first 3 games with minimum 2 or 3 points.
And this season is significant for the debuts of Jesper Olsen and Ivan Nilsson. And you mentioned Soren Busk earlier, who had made his debut earlier, but this is when he really establishes himself. So Sepp Piontek is slowly putting the puzzle pieces together. Some of the older players are making way. At this point, he's just a few years away from building a very good team. I imagine people couldn't imagine how impressive this team would become, but you clearly can see some of these players and the stars that they would become in the years to come.
It was mentality was growing not only with the players in the game, in the pitch, but also because Piontek was trying to change in the rules. Sometimes some Danish players were not allowed to play in the national team in the last day. For example, there was one time Morten Olsen was not supposed to play in the national team because Anderlecht has not released him because he said he was injured. But in the same day, Morten Olsen played with Anderlecht in a Belgian league game. So Piontek was asking to the Danish Federation and to the UEFA to change the rules and to have more power as an international federation to have the players not only the last day, but minimum at least 3 days before the game. And not enough. In Denmark, they were growing a big movement of fans. The fans were organizing in clubs fans of the national team because not many Danish people is happy to follow the local tournament, the Danish league, but they must support English clubs like Liverpool, Manchester United, and so on. So it was something new to support the national team, and they were starting to call themselves in opposition to the English name hooligans, the Roligans. and it came from the Danish word rolig. It means slowly, calm people, calm fans, but heart-warmed fans anyway. As we will see, they will travel, a lot of people, a lot of bus and cars, and of course charter flights in France in 84 and also in Mexico in 86 to support the Danish national team.
In closing, I imagine at the end of this season, there was a general feeling that progress was being made under Sepp Piontek.
Yes, Sepp Piontek has been an hero, an important man for the Danish football history. When he came in Denmark as a coach, as a national team coach, he had a good reputation as a person with a lot of culture. He was talking 6 different languages. And I remember Preben Elkjær told me once when Piontek was signed the contract as a new trainer in the national team, we players, we were happy but also curious how he can speak 6 different languages: German, English, French, Spanish, I guess Polish, because his family is from Poland. And I don't remember the 6, maybe a little Italian. But anyway, and of course Danish, because he learned Danish. He still lives in Denmark now, not far from here, from Odense. He is almost 86 years old. And Preben Elkjær told me we were curious to hear him, how he could talk so many languages. And after a couple of years, a friend asked me, is it real he talks 6 languages? I can say, yes, it is it, but there's only one problem. He's speaking 6 languages all together. So we can't understand sometimes what he means, because he mix a bit German and Danish, English and Danish, German and English. But anyway, he's a good trainer with a lot of energy, power, and motivation. So Piontek was hero at that time.
With that, I would like to thank you for this interview. So as always, feel free to leave questions and comments. All our respective contact informations are listed on this blog and podcast listings. So thank you, Davide, and looking forward for the next discussion.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure, like always.
Thank you.